Hey guys, and welcome back to Mad About Skin. In today's video, we're talking what the Wall Street Journal has dubbed the sunscreen wars. That's the battle raging between Supergoop and Trader Joe's. Supergoop have their cult favourite Unseen Sunscreen, but recently a new sunscreen product has entered the market, the Trader Joe's Daily Facial Sunscreen, which is said to be a like-for-like dupe at 75% less of the cost. People are talking about potential lawsuits based on trademarks and the similarity between these two products. A lot of people are saying, why go with Supergoop when you've got this fantastically affordable drugstore option? I'm going to talk about all of this in today's video and share with you what I think my thoughts and feelings are on both of these sunscreens. So sit back, relax, let's talk the sunscreen wars. Now, before we get into this, those of you that are living here in the UK, in Europe, Australasia, might be thinking, you know what, I didn't understand half of the words you just said, Rob. And I'm not surprised because we don't have Trader Joe's here in the UK and Europe. And also, the sunscreens which we're talking about, the Unseen Sunscreen by Supergoop, whilst it might be a cult favourite in the States, actually a lot of people in Europe look at it and think, you know, it's nice packaging, but actually it's the same outdated filters used time and time again, and there's just some better options on the European market. Take for example a product like this. This is the La Roche-Posay Anthelios UV Moon 400. This is a new launch with a new generation filter alongside some other fantastic sunscreen filters which just aren't available in the US market. It's super lightweight, glides onto the skin effortlessly, and gives you really truly broad spectrum protection. This is something that you can really struggle to find in the US market because the FDA doesn't really allow newer generation filters to be used in sun care products. That means a lot of brands have to work really hard at their formulation to get these older generation filters to actually appear good on the skin. This is something that Supergoop actually did really well, but this formulation does come with a higher price point, and that's why a lot of people in the UK, Europe, Australasia are looking and thinking, why would I buy Supergoop sunscreen for say like $40 for 1.7 fluid ounces when I could reach for something by La Roche-Posay which is better in terms of its formulation and half the price. And this is why, you know, this might not be the video for people living outside the States, and I'll share up there a video I did on some of the very best European sunscreens if you want to delve into that in a little bit more detail. But today we're talking about the comparison between the Unseen Sunscreen and the new Trader Joe's Daily Facial Sunscreen. Let's start with Unseen Sunscreen. So Supergoop launched like 4 years ago to huge fanfare. I know how frustrating it is if you live in the US and even in Canada to some extent, because a lot of brands will use or mirror across the products they sell in the States in Canada, even though they actually have very different regulations. It can be really frustrating to actually find a cosmetically elegant, really good, truly broad spectrum sunscreen. That's because, as I said before, the FDA only allow a very specific set of very old style UV filters to be actually used in their products. Does this mean that these products are bad? Absolutely not. You're still getting great SPF protection, but you're maybe not getting the same broad spectrum coverage with that UVA protection as you can with some newer generation filters, and they tend to feel heavier on the skin. I covered this in a little bit more detail in a video which I'll link up there if you want to know more about the US sunscreen market and kind of how it impacts consumers. But the Supergoop Unseen Sunscreen, this was a revelation when it launched, because Supergoop really kind of worked behind the scenes on a formulation that takes these US approved filters but actually applies them to a product which is gorgeous on the skin, leaves zero ashiness or white cast, and is super lightweight. It's truly invisible, it's hydrating, and people said, okay, it is a little bougie and up there. I think it's $38 for 1.7 fluid ounces. People said that's quite a high price point, but I'll pay it time and time again for that gorgeous, elegant feel. As I said, here in the UK, people are probably thinking, I could just reach for a Korean brand for half the price to get the same outcome and probably better style filters. Why would I do that? And that's absolutely the case. But if you don't have access to these at your drugstores or your chemists, then actually I think Supergoop really did revolutionize that segment of the industry. Now, cut to 4 years later, we have the introduction of the Trader Joe's Daily Facial Sunscreen. And I think it's an understatement to say that the whole internet lost its collective you-know-what. Everyone was like, wow, this is a product which is pretty much identical dupe for the Unseen Sunscreen, but for $8.99 rather than $38 for the same amount of product. It has the same filters used within it, it's got a very similar ingredient profile, and the texture, the application, the lightweight feel, all an identical dupe for the Supergoop Unseen Sunscreen. So of course everyone rushed out. There were said to be queues, people couldn't get their hands on these products. Apparently Trader Joe does actually have a huge amount of stock of this sunscreen, and they're still promoting it on their Instagram, so don't worry, if you haven't tried it yet, you can absolutely pop down to your local Trader Joe's and get this. I think I read somewhere that it's still in stock in most Trader Joe's. Some of the challenge here though is a lot of people said, is it just too similar? And there's been talk of legal action, lawsuits in the background. Now Now, I'm here to say this is definitely not going to be the case. These sunscreens aren't similar enough to justify any legal action, and I suspect this is all speculation rather than anything that Supergoop has actually done. When it comes to formulations, because of the way that ingredients lists are created, it's really hard to match like for like and copy a formulation because you need to understand the exact percentages of all these ingredients. Also, this Trader Joe's sunscreen doesn't actually have the same ingredient profile as the Supergoop Unseen Sunscreen. It's got different percentages of the key filters. It's got some other added ingredients that the Supergoop one doesn't have. The imaging is very different. There is nothing comparable in terms of the name, the look of the product. So I think we can dispel the myth that there's going to be any illegal action here. I probably think that Supergoop are a little bit annoyed that someone's stolen their thunder and doing it at 75% less the price, because I'm sure this is selling like that with people saying, okay, let's just trade down. Same exact results, but a fraction of the cost. And you know, with the cost of living crisis at the moment, I think a lot of people are looking to minimize the cost of their sunscreen without compromising on the results. So what are my thoughts on the Trader Joe's sunscreen? Well, putting aside what I said earlier, which is we're blessed here in the UK, in Europe, in Australasia to have newer generation filters that we can apply to the skin for more broad spectrum and lightweight protection. Putting aside that, I think if I lived in the States, I would definitely be reaching for the Trader Joe's sunscreen. It's often called a dupe, but I think that does it a disservice. I actually think the Trader Joe's Daily Facial Sunscreen is a better product than the Supergoop one. Now let me explain why. It's got a slightly different percentage base of the filters that it used. Both products use the exact same 4 UV filters, both chemical, so again, zero white cast or ashiness on the skin. But the Trader Joe one has a slightly different percentage profile of these individual filters, which I think will give a marginal better UVA protection than with the Supergoop Unseen Sunscreen. Of course, formulation matters. You can't just look at the percentages of these filters and make a result out of that. But I do think overall, without putting it through any rigorous testing myself, I think you're going to get a better, broader spectrum coverage with that Trader Joe sunscreen. They both apply identical. I'll leave a link to a Dr. Dre video in the description box below if you want to check it out so you can see like a side-by-side comparison, which she did. They look to be identical in terms of their application, but I think with the Trader Joe's one, it's just going to absorb that a little bit quicker. It's got some extra ingredients in there that's designed to speed up that absorption rate, which is fantastic. If you're living in a hot, humid climate like here in the UK, which is roasting at the moment, that quick application and absorption will just make it so much easier. You can then use makeup on top of it, and it'll just speed up the whole process. If it was me, I think actually, rather than a dupe, I think the Trader Joe's Daily Facial Sunscreen is actually streets ahead of the Supergoop Unseen one, especially when you consider the price point. So, if you're to summarize in this video, if you're on the lookout for a new drugstore sunscreen and you're living in the US, I would definitely pop down to Trader Joe's and try this one out. Super lightweight, zero ashiness, zero cast on the skin, really affordable, and gives a really nice, elegant finish, formulated to perfection to really, take away some of the drawbacks of those older style FDA approved filters, so giving that locked in protection with a really nice finish to the skin. I would love to know your own thoughts, feelings, and opinions, so sound off in the comment section below. But for me, what the Wall Street Journal are calling the sunscreen was, I think it's first battle to Trader Joe's, hands down, no questions asked. Let me know your thoughts, feelings, and opinions, and wherever you are in the world, guys. Stay safe, stay well, love your skin. Take care. Bye.